What's going on, everyone? Trust the Buzz here. If you're new to the channel, I'll make Charlotte Hornets content. So if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. If you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, in today's video, we're talking about the Hornets signing a new president of basketball operations, Jeff Peterson, who was the assistant GM for the Brooklyn Nets. 35 years old, well respected around the league. I have a lot to say about him, but I'll kind of keep it brief as I know everybody doesn't have that much time. But in the podcast that will probably be released sometime around this video, I will go more in depth about it and kind of give like my deep thoughts on it. But for the sake of this video, the things you need to know about him is that he was with the Atlanta Hawks and he's been with the Brooklyn Nets. Of course, he went from intern to GM, which is something, well, assistant GM, I should say, which is something I really respect. One thing about businesses in general, I mean, we could take basketball out of it and just talk about businesses because at the end of the day, these are not corporations, but these are businesses, these teams. The best managers, the best leaders are people who kind of went through the ranks for the most part. You know, sometimes there's, different factors here and there, but a lot of times the guys who get the most respect, the guys who really kind of make an impact on the culture and on just kind of how things go within a company are the people who kind of saw it from the bottom and was able to see it once they got to the top. Those are things that really inspire people, and I think that him have done that with the Hawks in such a fast rate, I think it was like in 4 years, that garnered him a lot of respect around the league. Now he goes on to Brooklyn, which I've read reports on him, and like I said, I'll get more into this in the podcast, but I obviously don't want to talk your ear off. There was times like being with the Brooklyn Nets that Sean Marks, who was the GM, was like, this guy, assistant GM, willing to go get coffee for people. He's willing to take down notes for people. He's willing to do these things because he understands kind of like back from his intern days, this is what helps him be better. He keeps like a notepad of like things he likes and doesn't like, how people run organizations. He's very reflective on kind of like decisions that are made. He takes responsibility, and we're just talking about small little intangibles. We're not even talking about his ability to actually run a team, which I have high faith in him. And as far as like what the Hornets are going to do next, I have no idea. The idea would be to possibly pair him with someone who's kind of been around a little longer. I don't think it's necessarily to babysit him, but it is someone to kind of checks and balances. Because the whole thing is the Hornets are trying to Mitch Kupchak, and not to say Mitch Kupchak caused this, but Mitch Kupchak was the president of basketball operations and the GM. Typically, there's one person who plays both those roles. You can look at, I believe it's R.C. Buford for the San Antonio Spurs. That's not an uncommon thing. But unfortunately, what was going on for the Charlotte Hornets is we know Mitch was MJ's buddy. So there was no checks and balances between those type of ideas and then talking to MJ. It was kind of like whatever MJ said, whatever, Mitch kind of aligned with MJ. I don't really think Mitch was a yes man, but I do feel like him and MJ probably had very, very similar ideologies, which we all know were kind of old. So that's kind of where I like that the Hornets are saying, hey, we're going to have a basketball operations person. We're going to have a general manager. We need those two guys to kind of work together, work as one, but it's very important that we keep them separate because they're able to, like I said, balance each other. And I think the best way to balance each other by having someone young is having someone elder or at least more experienced, because Jeff Peterson has not been in the league that long. Yes, in terms of like I said, from his internship till now, yes. But as far as like being an assistant GM, we don't know how much moves has he really made or what he's been really responsible for. I did see in an article that unfortunately is an athletic article, or else, I would put it in here, but you could get in trouble for that because paid. But I saw in an athletic article that he also was responsible for scouting Cam Thomas and was a huge reason the Nets drafted Cam Thomas. Now, think of Cam Thomas how you may. One thing we can say, Cam Thomas is a bucket. It don't matter if he plays 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Somehow he's going to score 30 points. It doesn't matter if he plays 30 minutes to 5 minutes. He's going to score 30 points. Of course, with that being said, there's probably other players he was responsible for. Just the article just mentioned Cam Thomas. So to just see a guy who's just so in tune, so retrospective, a guy who really feels as though, what it means to really be in this position, I think they couldn't have found a better person, especially with his with his kind of rapport with Rick Schnall. I always say Rich, but it's Rick Schnall. I think that those are all things that are important. I mean, we're going to also see probably guys like Wes Wilcox, maybe, who's the assistant GM for the Sacramento Kings. He also was kind of in that Atlanta phase, so maybe they will reunite. I don't know. But as far as Jeff Peterson goes, I think we have a solid guy. I think this is the right choice to make. Now, I will say I'm not sure that they're going to hire Jeff Peterson and say, okay, make the rest of our moves, such as coach, GM, all that. They're definitely going to take in his input, but I personally feel like the owners are going to kind of put the first front office together. Now, when it does come to coach and staff, I think Jeff Peterson, whoever his GM is, they're going to be the ones in charge of that and maybe try to get the owners to sign off. But as far as like the front office and all those positions around, and there's so many, I don't know them all, that is going to be strictly owners. I think, like I said, they're going to listen to Jeff because technically basketball operations, that's kind of your job. But they're going to listen to him for sure. I don't think it's to undermine him, but the dude just got the job today. And the team needs a GM, team needs a coach, team needs focusing on staff. So there's other things that can come along with that, but I'll talk about all of that in the podcast. But if you're just wondering about Jeff Peterson and kind of what it is around the league, he's well respected. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, those are just two huge names that are reported to be, just kind of have Jeff Peterson's back. Kind of is the best way for me to put it. He actually played like AAU ball with KD or something like that. It's crazy, but he's known to have relationships with players. I have not heard a bad thing about this guy from multiple organizations, from Nets fans, from just people who are fans of the NBA. I haven't heard anything bad about this guy, and of course we've been linked to him since like last summer. So I think it's the right hire. We'll only see where it goes. I know you can look at the Nets and say, okay, look at them, they're kind of a mess. But a lot of what I've seen from Nets fans is saying that's all Sean Marks. That has nothing to do with Jeff Peterson. And in fact, I've seen things that people say they're convinced. Now, of course, no one knows for sure, but they're convinced that Sean Marks is like kind of not listening to Jeff Peterson. Now, you know how Twitter gets, you know how some articles can get. I'm not going to sit here and say that's fact, but I've seen it a lot. I just say don't judge the Nets' current situation and put that on Jeff Peterson. Overall, like I said, great hire.